I am Reed. I am 27, just an average dude. I've made tons of money mistakes in my 20s, and now I want to share everything I've learned to help you take control of your finances and your life. What good, fam, man? You know, I am all about calling out the BS, especially when it comes to our money. And lately, the more I dig into how our financial system actually works, the more I realize just how much we being played. We talking about something so fundamental, so powerful, and so secretive that it makes the CIA look like an open book. And that, my friends, is the Federal Reserve System. Now, before you tune out thinking this is some dry economic lecture, hear me out. This is about your money. This is about why your dollar buys less and less. This is about why the cost of living keeps going up. And this is about how you can protect yourself. I recently reread this absolute classic, The Case Against the Fed by Murray Rothbard. This book was written in 1993, but I swear to God, it's just as relevant, if not more, today than when it was written. Rothbard starts by saying, by far the most secret and least accountable operation of the federal government is not, as one might expect, the CIA, DIA, or some other super secret intelligence agency. Can you guess what operation it is that I am talking about? The Federal Reserve System is accountable to no one. It has no budget. It is subject to no audit, and no congressional committee knows of or can truly supervise its operations. Let that sink in for a second. The Federal Reserve, an institution that literally controls the United States' entire monetary system, and therefore the global reserve currency, is the most powerful organization in the world. And yet, it is accountable to nobody. And this strange situation, if acknowledged at all, is invariably trumpeted as a virtue. They tell us it is good that it is independent, that it is not subject to political pressure. But what does independent really mean when it has so much power over every single one of us? I love this book. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it again today is because as the world has gotten bigger and more interconnected, somehow our own worlds seem to be getting smaller. Our attention span is getting shorter, and we as a society have a tendency to focus on the immediate rather than the big picture. Just this week, 30-year U.S. Treasury bond yields hit the highest level since 2007. Right before Lehman Brothers collapsed, the derivative crisis blew up and the entire financial system almost came crashing down. Now, most people out there walking around are going to shrug this off. They might not even know it is happening at all, nor do they care because they don't think it impacts them. But if you are watching this video right now, I have a sense that you know that things are not right and that they going to get a whole lot worse. So today, we not going to talk about the new Fed chair. We not going to talk about the odds of a rate hike or rate cut. Instead, we are going to pull back the curtain on an institution that has essentially proven that the situation we in today is not an accident. It is by design. And in order to do that, we're going to start with something so simple it might sound stupid, but it is a statement that money is a true store of value. And before you say, of course I know that, I understand that, let us take a look at this. Now, this right here, this is a Federal Reserve note. It says so right at the top. It also says on here, this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. The Federal Reserve has tried to fool us and trick us into thinking that this is money, but it is not. It is a piece of paper. Its only value is perceived because we as a society have given it value. It has no inherent value. Real money has a true store of value. It has intrinsic value. That is the fundamental difference between money and currency. And if you don't understand that difference, you are already behind the curve because that is how they get you. But if we take the Federal Reserve at their word and let us just say for the sake of their argument, we call this money. Rothbard says, if the chronic inflation undergone by Americans and in almost every other country is caused by the continuing creation of new money, and if in every country its governmental central bank FE in the United States, the Federal Reserve FE is the sole monopoly source and creator of all money, who then is responsible for the blight of inflation? It seems like a simple question with a simple answer, right? If the Federal Reserve is creating the money, then the Federal Reserve is creating inflation. So why then is it, tell me this, why then is it as a society that we are constantly being told that the only institution, the only possible hope we have of fighting inflation is through the Federal Reserve? That somehow the institution that is responsible for the disease that is impacting all of our wallets is the only one that has the answer. It's insane when you think about it like that. Rothbard calls it a shell game and likens it to the greatest drumfire propaganda coup in history. He even has a great analogy here where he talks about the old ploy of a robber running down the street with his stolen goods, shouting, stop thief, when they, of course, are the robber themselves. That, my friends, is the Federal Reserve. They are literally the ones creating the problem, and then they position themselves as the only solution. It's a genius con. Honestly, the truth is that right now, the United States is sitting on $39 trillion of debt, and every percentage point increase on the interest is going to add another $400 billion in interest payments. That is just the cost of servicing our debt. It is more than we spend on our entire defense budget. Not going to infrastructure, not going to actual growth, just going to the debt alone. But it doesn't stop there. Inflation is continuing to rise. We have oil still $100 a barrel plus as geopolitical tensions continue to escalate, adding more pressure, and investors increasingly no longer want us treasury bonds. The yields The return they get simply don't make up for the risk, the uncertainty in the market. And as investors move away from U.S. Treasury bonds, what happens? The United States is forced to offer higher yields, higher interest on that debt to attract buyers, and the less that investors want it, the more the United States has to pay. This is what creates a downward spiral, a debt doom loop, as I like to call it. It's a vicious cycle where rising debt forces higher interest rates, which increases debt payments, leading to more borrowing, and so on. But this is where it gets even more infuriating, because this book outlines a lot of hypocrisy. But let me tell you what has really been going on since December of 2025, Faye. Wait. Correction, since December of 2023, my bad. I am getting ahead of myself. Faye, the Federal Reserve has purchased U.S. Treasury bonds to the tune of almost $250 billion. So riddle me this. How is it that the very institution, the sole, the one and only institution that can possibly protect us and save us from inflation with one hand, is on the other hand out there buying us bonds, which will ultimately create more inflation? This is the shell game. This is the ultimate gaslighting. They tell us they're refighting inflation, while simultaneously engaging in activities that are inherently inflationary. And as Rothbard goes on to say, he says, we begin to see why it has always been so important for the Fed and for other central banks to invest themselves with an aura of solemnity and mystery, or, as we shall see more fully, if the public knew. If the public knew what was really going on, it would be able to rip open the curtain covering the inscrutable Wizard of Oz, and it would soon discover that the Fed, far from being the indispensable solution to the problem of inflation, is itself the heart and cause of the problem. Man, that gets me every single time. Every single time. It is so clear when you actually look at it without all the propaganda and spin. And in fact, he even has one more sentence here that I am going to read. He says, what we need is not a totally independent, all-powerful Fed. What we need is no Fed at all. Chills again, written 30 plus years ago, and just as relevant today. And before someone out there says, well, we have to have the Federal Reserve, we can function without it. That is part of the propaganda machine, man. That is what they want you to believe. Instead of having a committee of unelected officials controlling not only the global reserve currency, our entire monetary system, and therefore your and my money are currency, right? But the wealth that we have in the form of these Federal Reserve notes. Therefore, anything that is dollar denominated. What if instead we let the free market decide? What if the rate of borrowing was set by supply and demand? Just like everything else, just like how they did it before central banks existed. Oh, but there is a problem with this, because it would therefore require real money. It would require a true store of value, essentially handcuffs for an institution that right now can do whatever it wants. Think about a world with real money, though. Think about if we were back on some kind of a gold standard, or we couldn't just create more units of currency out of thin air. Some will say that it is far-fetched, that it is an outdated concept, but it would mean that banks would operate with real risk appetite. It would mean that they wouldn't be able to gamble with all of our funds and create these massive derivative bets based on nothing, all for the sake of their profit at our risk. It would mean that ultimately, if you worked and you saved, your savings would truly be worth something in the future. Your purchasing power wouldn't be constantly eroded by inflation. Now again, this might not sound like the perfect system to some. I am sure there are gripes out there, historical arguments, and complexities, but the system we have today, the Federal Reserve System, is operating as intended. That is what I want people to understand. Inflation is not an accident. It is the policy, it is the chosen path, and they are doing a darn good job of making sure that they use it to transfer wealth from the masses to the few. That is what inflation does. It is a silent tax that you didn't vote for, and I didn't vote for, on our wealth. And wealth doesn't disappear. It merely changes hands, meaning it goes to the closest to the counterfeiting, those at the very top, while the many are the ones who lose their wealth little by little, or recently a lot by lot, year over year, month by month, day by day. It's a constant, insidious transfer of wealth. Now, I am not here to tell you that we're going back to a gold standard tomorrow. I am not that naive, but what I am here to tell you is that the system that they created, that they have been using to control the American people, is breaking. The bond yields show it. The debt shows it. All of the signs are there, flashing bright red for anyone willing to look. But when it breaks, it doesn't suddenly mean liberation for the people. Unfortunately, what it means is that those who are holding their wealth within the system with dollar-denominated assets, whether that is the stock market or bonds or cash savings, whatever it might be, those are going to be the people who are hurt the most. Their purchasing power will be decimated. Now, there is opportunity, however, for those who are holding something that has a real store of value. There is light at the end of the tunnel, a way to protect your wealth, and not only protect your wealth against devaluation, but as the dollar continues to decline. What we see throughout history in currency resets and currency life cycles is that as we reach the end, as we reach that reset point, gold will go up significantly compared to the failing fiat currency. That is where we are today. We are at a critical juncture in the global financial system, and understanding this isn't just academic. It is essential for your financial survival. Now, If you personally have the majority of your wealth inside of the system and you want a strategy for what is coming next with their plan, you can call us at the number below. Talk to us if you have questions, we have answers. That is what our team here at ITM Trading is for. We are a full-service, physical-only gold and silver dealer. But we are so much more than that in every video I do and every video Daniela does. We are here to help educate and help you create a custom plan for what is coming next. So if you already have gold and silver, want a second opinion, or if you don't and you want to learn more, again, call us at the number below. You can click the link down below in the description and set up a time that works best for you, or you can scan the QR code. And if you want to learn more about currency resets throughout history, because that is what we do here, that is what we study, you can always download our Built to Endure report. It has a ton of information about the last 100 years in currency resets, how different assets perform, and what that means for your future. In the meantime, thank you so much for being here. I am Taylor Kenny with ITM Trading, your trusted source for all things gold, silver, and lifelong wealth protection. Until next time, peace.